So we're getting a couple more people come in. Oh, they saw I was recording the meetings. That's perfect. For you guys who just came in, if you guys just want to mute yourself just so there's no background noise. Of course, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself. You can ask in the chat and stuff like that. And this will become like old hat. This will be within 5 months from now, we'll easily just be doing this just naturally and everything. All right. So cool. So first of all, welcome. Really exciting. You guys are going through. Kind of fun too. Usually we start on Mondays, and today we're starting on Tuesday, so it's kind of a nice little. You guys got a little extra day, which also means that this week will be extra fun because it'll be a little squeezed in. But first, kind of introductions, right? My name is Victor. Victor Geislinger. If you're wondering how to pronounce that beast of a name sometimes, Victor Geislinger is my name. I am your cohort lead, cohort instructor. The person you're going to see a whole lot of throughout this next 10 months that you guys are going to be in here. We also have our ed coach here, which is Dara. Hi, Dara. You can see her. You're welcome to introduce yourself, Dara, if you like.
Oh, sweet. Hey, everybody. I'm Dara. I am the ed coach for this cohort. Really excited to see all of you here today. I am based in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm in the desert where it's raining today, which was not expected. So we've got a nice little treat, and it seems to, I don't know if the rain is like kicking up spores or other allergens, so excuse any sniffling that I do today. Sorry about that. Yeah, looking forward to working with all of you, and we're going to do a little fun sort of meet your classmates at the end after we get through all of the orientation stuff. So excited for that too.
Thanks, Dara. Cool. So kind of some quick informal introductions, right? We'll probably get to know each other a little bit more throughout. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys because I have a little presentation, which presentations are always fun. So let me go ahead and present this. And then let me share my screen. For the record, you guys will see that I will constantly share my screen, and it'll take me like an extra 5 seconds to 5 seconds is being generous. Usually takes me longer than that to make sure I get everything shared. Okay, cool. So you guys are off to my side. So if you guys have any questions, definitely, if you unmute yourself, I probably won't be looking at you directly just because, well, you can see my screen. Okay, so welcome. June 10th, 2019, this was an old slide. I'm sorry, I didn't change that part, but close enough. All right, so welcome. You guys are part of the online data science bootcamp. Hopefully that you guys are here like you're supposed to. This is the part-time cohort, so we'll talk about a little bit what that is, but that means a 10-month program. So you guys already did the first big step, which is basically just starting here, and then we're gonna get into this, and we're gonna have the whole data science journey together. So, oops, let me go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so a quick agenda of what we'll be doing. Basically, we'll talk about the curriculum roadmap, basically what you're gonna be doing over the next 10 months. We'll kind of did a little quick introduction of myself and Dara, basically your support team, cohort lead, educational coach, and then we'll go talk about the expectations, code of conduct, graduation requirements, portfolio projects, and blog. We'll go over all of that stuff, as well as, module repeat policy. And then we'll talk about the community, which is a big part, especially us being, remote. It can definitely feel a little strange being so far away. I think we have at least a couple people, maybe at least one person who's in the UK. I'm in California, Pacific time. So pretty decent spread throughout. So it's kind of cool to have this community, and that's where we'll basically have most of our community will be based around Slack, but also we'll see each other pretty frequently throughout the week. So you'll be surprised over the next 10 months how close it feels and how much it feels like a real classroom as if you're in person. And then we'll talk about a little bit of, being able to go into WeWork and stuff like that, your hot desk and things. And then we'll talk about, kind of getting to talk to each other and what's going to happen next. Okay. So here's the basic roadmap. So this is kind of going to be broken down, and I'll have a roadmap of exactly how this goes through. But basically, we have our 5 different mods, and really that last mod is based on the whole capstone project. So module 1, which is what we're starting, literally today. I think it technically released the material for you guys. Was it just yesterday? No, Sunday? I lose track now. But you guys should have access now to module 1 material. In our first thing, basically introduction to data with Python and SQL. So really, as a data scientist, you need to have data. Typically, it used to be Python versus R, and now it's very much more Python. So these are the tools that we would use as data scientists. So Python's going to be a big tool that, like a programming language that we're going to use constantly throughout this whole next 10 months. Mod 2, we're going to talk about more statistics, A/B testing, linear regression. Mod 3, machine learning, which is pretty exciting stuff. Basically, instead of coding specifically like, hey, computer, do these things, you're basically, hey, computer, here's my data. Can you figure out the right way to answer this question? And it's a really interesting kind of paradigm that we're actually in right now. And then Mod 4, we're basically going to turn machine learning on steroids, where we basically do big data, deep learning, natural language processing. We'll even talk maybe a lot about like image recognition and stuff like that. And then of course, Mod 5 is our capstone project. And that basically you have about like almost like 2 months of just working on this capstone project. And the way I kind of see this, each of these modules has a separate project. And this will become part of your portfolio of like what you show, like when you go into an interview. When someone asks you, oh, can you tell me about a data science project? You can say which one, because you have 5 different ones to go through. And your capstone really will be like your go-to, like, hey, let me tell you about this project, where you get super excited about. For the record, I just had 2 cohorts. They're going through a capstone assessments today, or not today, this week. And so it's pretty exciting to see how far they've gone already. So something to look forward to. Okay, so our next slide here. So one kind of quick thing is like what we're like really learning, or what we're really learning, right? And how to think like a data scientist. That's really what we're doing. Is we're not just simply saying, okay, here's the stuff you need to know, and now like you just memorize these things and you'll be fine. We're really talking about learning how to learn and making sure you pick up these parts. And I will tell you that even though if you guys signed up for part-time versus full-time, if you guys know that there's a difference there, full-time goes for 5 months. Part-time, you're going through this material pretty quickly and stuff like this. And so you're really going to have to learn how to learn. It's a very exciting thing. People are always amazed how far like how much they know, even within a month or 2 months. Like people always say, like, I didn't realize like how much I knew until I looked back and said, wow, I didn't know any of this stuff before. So a big thing about, thinking like a data scientist. Data scientists, we are in a really interesting position. We are part kind of computer programmer. We're also part statistician. We're also part communicator. You have to do all of these 3 things. But a big part usually is a technical skill of like understanding. So reading error messages from your program. You will find me actually really excited about error messages. I like to say is that if you find an error message, it means the computer's trying to tell you, it says, I don't know what's going on here. And then when you do something and you get a new error message, it's even a better idea because that means you did something different. So we'll talk about error messages. It's going to be your friend. Google, I have this maybe something that I think maybe kind of gets stemmed from a lot of like traditional schooling is that people say like, I feel like I'm cheating if I look up Google or something like that. This is a perfectly natural thing. It's definitely something that data scientists in general will just do because, I mean, you can't know everything. There's just so much, And this is a big deal. I also kind of relate to imposter syndrome is that sometimes you feel like there's so much like, like, oh, do I really know this if I have to Google it? It's like, yes. There's plenty of data scientists, people who are very well seasoned, who've been around doing data science work before data science was even a term. And I remember hearing someone who was like in their 50s working at Google, very senior data scientist, basically like one of the pioneers. And he even said that he still has imposter syndrome sometimes because he feels like he has to Google things, he has to look up stuff and he realizes, I feel like I should know this stuff, but it's a completely common thing that we'll do. So I'm gonna make you feel comfortable Googling things. And then also looking at resources, right? You're gonna constantly be learning. Some of the stuff that I know now just happened about a year, maybe a year and a half ago at most. The field is evolving very, very quickly. So knowing how to look at outside resources, knowing the new stuff and knowing how to read that stuff will be really useful. And then, we're also here, me and Dara are here to have a process. Like when you feel stuff, you feel like you're like, oh no, like this is really tough. That's where we're going to help support you. I'm going to be more technical. Dara's going to definitely have a lot of great skills of like organizing your time and organizing, like figuring out how to help you navigate through that kind of like this field of like getting stuck and everything. Okay. So one thing like this is, if you have been doing programming, this is exactly how you feel sometimes where, and I will say, I feel this a lot. It's like, sometimes something's like, oh, it doesn't work, and of course, like, it's like, oh, why doesn't it work? It's usually the other question of when it works and you're like, wait a second, this wasn't supposed to work the way I thought it would. How did it work anyway? This is going to be just common, just feeling. So I would say internalize, this two frame diagram or frame comic. All right. So our full timeline going forward. So January, which is where we are right now, that's where we're starting module 1. And then it's going to be every 2 months. So about every 8 weeks is going to be a new module. And each module is going to have about 10 sections. So that means about 2 sections per week over 6 weeks. So some modules might have 10, some might have 11, some might have 12. So we'll kind of have around there. And then we'll have 2 weeks of just doing a project. So every module will actually end with a project that you'll work on, kind of encapsulating the stuff that you've just learned from that module. So you can see already is that it's kind of worked out really well, where we have January, our first module, March, our second module, May, and then July, September is when we actually start the capstone. And then November is really like your official, like, when we're gonna actually be graduating and stuff like that. So really exciting stuff. But note that this is 10 months. This is a marathon. This is not something you're going to like, just, I'm going to do all of, I have so many people say, I'm going to be ahead and I'm going to do all of the sections as quick as I can in module 1, and I'll be ahead. I'll tell you what, that doesn't work in the long run. This is a marathon. You have to pace yourself. You have to make sure you don't burn out, asking for help when you need it and stuff like that. And knowing that you will at times get stuck and you will feel behind and stuff like that. And that's perfectly normal. But just knowing how to get yourself out of that is really the big skill that you'll take up. Okay, so cool. But this timeline, does anyone have any just quick questions about like this timeline of starting in January? And then every 8 weeks we'll have a new module. Pretty good. All right. I think as you guys go through it too, we'll talk more and it'll become clearer and clearer. So I'm sure you'll either have more questions or it'll become clear for you. Okay, so like I mentioned, question, go ahead.
Yeah, so do you guys have like, so I see your timeline on here. Do you have like a more specific like, like section within the module, like timeline for completing stuff?
Yeah, good question. So one thing, if you, the easiest way to see specifically, like what date are we starting these things, when are things to do? If you go to LearnCo right now, on that homepage, like very first time you go to LearnCo, log in, and you scroll to the bottom, you'll see there's a bunch of information, including a calendar, and that calendar is going to be the thing that we share as a cohort to know what the due dates and everything. So I can go over that maybe a little bit later after this.
Okay, cool,
okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So quickly, our support team, right? We already introduced ourselves a little bit, but again, just to emphasize, I am Victor, if you haven't realized that already. I'm in California. I am in Concord, California. I am kind of like in the East Bay area, kind of like right before essentially people start thinking about like saying, oh, is that the Bay Area or not? That's kind of like where I'm at. And then we have Dara, of course, who's in rainy Phoenix, Arizona right now. So kind of interesting weather and everything. But the main things that you want to know about, like for me, like, okay, like you're my cohort lead. What does that mean? You can really call me your instructor. You'll hear me tend to use that word. I think that makes a lot more sense when I say it out loud. It's when I say cohort leads, like, what does that mean? It's like, well, like I'm really here to help you do the technical stuff. I help lead study groups, which will be twice a week, where we go over sections, we review material. If you have questions about like, hey, this program's not running, or, how would I do this? Or like, oh, I found this interesting article about how to do this machine learning algorithm. I'm your person to help go to. Now, Dara is your ed coach. Dara, I don't know if you want to go into some detail about like what you'll do for them or, all that stuff.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm Dara. I am the ed coach for this entire cohort. I'm excited to work with you. I, unlike Victor, am going to be your non-technical support throughout your journey here at Flatiron. And ed coaches really, we support and challenge our students to continually make progress in pursuit of the goals that you have here, namely completing the program, right? And working through each module, working through each of those portfolio projects, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So I work with students, especially in the beginning. One of the things we'll be talking about a lot is about creating study habits that support those goals that you have for yourself, and then troubleshooting any challenges that come up, like procrastination, which many of us suffer from, myself included. Time management, figuring out your schedule, how this fits into your day-to-day. As part-time students, I imagine you all have lives outside of Flatiron, right? This is a part-time gig for you. So that means you probably have other things going on, like work and families and animals and hobbies and other things. So a lot of what we'll talk about in the beginning is like, where does this fit in? How do I fit this into my schedule and make sure that I am working through everything on a consistent basis? So we'll have the chance to get to know each other a little bit better in our Meet Your Classmates a little bit later, but that's my little ditty for now.
Thank you, Dara. Yeah, and I will say is that I've worked with Dara in the past. I think, no, she wasn't with my first cohort that I had started off, but the second one. And everyone always says, it's like, I don't know why, I haven't talked to Dara more, because Dara is awesome and amazing. And I 100% endorse that reaction. You should definitely contact Dara. Dara will help you so much. And I think it's one of those things where people, to be quite honest, sometimes, we think like technicals, like, oh, that's the stuff I really need to know, but I don't even know the other stuff. I don't even really think about the other stuff. I'm pretty decent at that. Dara has some really great tricks and stuff like that. And really, I would say it's a skill. There's skills that you have to develop, just like you have to learn the technical skills, your programming and stuff like this, and data science related skills. You really have to have the skill of like managing your time and managing all these things. I think it's a big thing that honestly, sometimes we neglect, but again, Dara is super important and super awesome. So I'm glad she's with us on this cohort. All right, so moving on a little bit. So one thing we'll have next week is one-on-ones. So one-on-ones with instructors. And so this will either be, with me, it might be with another instructor, most likely Eli Thomas, one of our more senior instructors and stuff like that. We'll kind of talk to you a little bit more about what this looks like. But basically it's so we're in part-time. So it's a 30-minute session once per week. It's kind of like, what we can do. What this time is kind of like your one-on-one time to ask any questions, whether it's like questions about, your data science, maybe like curriculum that you're going over. It could be even questions about saying, hey, like I'm looking at these different jobs, can you tell me more about the whole data scientist, like what exactly that means, where do I fit in as a data scientist? Or you might see, I saw a job that says decision scientist, like, is that the same thing? Those are kind of things you can talk about as well. This is kind of like your time to talk with an instructor to kind of iron out any, wandering questions you might have. It's also a good time for us to basically help you out with any specific code. So sometimes, if you notice going back and forth on Slack, trying to answer a question about a program, or like, I'm running these errors, sometimes it can be really difficult to kind of get that, to make that work. One-on-ones are really great for those. Say, hey, I have this part I want to debug, can we kind of walk this through? Or I don't quite understand what's going through here. So that's kind of like more of a pair programming process. We might also just kind of like do a quick, like usually when I do my one-on-ones with students, I'll kind of say, where are you in the curriculum right now? How much time have you spent this past week? Usually that's kind of a good gauge for me to see like how you're doing, stuff like that. And then I'll just say, do you have any questions that you want to go over, or anything that's kind of on your mind? And again, it's at 30, you can do it up to once a week for 30 minutes. You don't have to spend the whole 30 minutes. We don't have to spend 30 minutes just staring at each other saying, oh, yeah, that sounds good. It's also a nice time to just connect with another instructor and stuff like who's more knowledgeable, or someone who's knowledgeable with the technical stuff. Okay. So, and that will start not this week, but next week. All right. And now I think, Dara, this is your slide, ed coaching. You want to go into detail?
Yes, sir. This is me. So before I jump into this, I will make a plug for Victor. Use your one-on-ones use those instructor one-on-ones every week. Again, like Victor said with the ed coaching sessions, even if you feel like you're doing fine, you don't need them, they're a really important opportunity just to touch base on a weekly basis and have that one-on-one time. Like, that's really precious time, and I would encourage all of you to take advantage. It's good stuff. So now we'll jump into talking about this fun and interesting image that we have here, the emotional journey of creating anything great, which is exactly what you all are embarking on right now, this emotional journey. And most people start out over on the left-hand side at this is the best idea ever. More than likely, I would say the majority of you, I hope, are at that place right now. You're excited, you're just getting started on this journey, and most people sort of expect that nice, steady, straight uphill journey. But for most of us, that journey actually looks a little bit more curvy and bumpy, like the image below. But I have some fantastic news for all of you. We are all in this together. Myself, Victor, the rest of you, this whole group, we're a cohort for a reason, and we are your bridge across the dark swamp, should you need it, right? So if you find yourself sort of starting to slide, if that excitement and motivation starts to wane, if things things are going to be challenging. This is a challenging and intensive program, but if things get to the point where they're too challenging and you're feeling like you need some help, raise your hand, wave the flag, let us know that you need help. We are here to support you, and you are all here to support each other. So this is all that to say, like, this is a place to reach out and ask for support, ask for help when you need it. Like I said, it's a challenging program. Everyone here is here to learn. So we don't expect you to know everything coming in the door, otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? But we do expect you to rely on and support each other. That's why we're here as a group. That's why one of the great benefits of being in a cohort. So ask questions when you're feeling confused. More often than not, and I see this all the time, I would be willing to bet that Victor would back me up on this. If you have a question about something, there's at least one other student that has the same question, and it's just a matter of who's going to be the braver one to jump in and ask. So be the brave one and ask the question, because it won't just be for yourself, it will be for somebody else too. So as I mentioned earlier, as your ed coach, I'm your non-technical support. So I'm here to support and challenge you all throughout your journey here in this program. So I want to quickly share with you how we're going to work together. I will have a kickoff call, an individual kickoff call with each and every one of you. And then following that call, you'll have the opportunity to meet with me up to once a month. As Victor said, I highly recommend that you take advantage of it, especially in the beginning. But the other thing too is, I'm here certainly to, first of all, we'll take a break from all the technical stuff because I won't be able to help you anyway. And just check in on how you're doing, right? Like, this isn't, the learning process is a challenging process. It's not all just about taking in information. You guys aren't machines, you're humans. So I'm a great accountability partner. I'm here to cheer you on, help keep you motivated, and provide a space to talk through any blockers or challenges that might come up. I also really enjoy celebrating with students. I had a couple of students actually last week come to calls with me just to let me know how great things were going. And those are good things to do too. That's a great way to use your ed coaching session. One of the things that Victor mentioned earlier is how quickly students realize how much they've learned, in just a month or in 2 months. But sometimes you guys forget to stop and give yourselves a pat on the back. So I'm here to do that with you and celebrate with you as well. Any questions so far?
Sorry, if I could say one thing. Thank you, Dara, for the position that you have, because I'm actually coming from the full-time cohort, and I wanted to kind of downgrade into the part-time cohort, only because I realized how much work everything is, and I realized how there's legitimately a exponential like it gets harder and harder. Like, the information in the beginning starts out very easy, and then it starts to get quickly overwhelming very, very, before you even realize it. And it's quite a journey. There's ups and downs. But yeah, that graph in particular was very, very accurate, and hilarious, because that does actually seem like the emotional aspect of the journey, because it is quite a journey. It is very difficult. And yeah, everything you guys said up to this point is very much legitimate, and I can even validate that myself. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Johnny. We're happy to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I will add in that too, is that, Johnny, thank you for coming and everything like that. I think you probably came from Raphael's cohort, right?
Yeah, that's correct. He was a really awesome guy, really cool.
Yeah,
But like, it was so much work getting hit at us, and it just gets so overwhelming so quickly. Like, it starts out easy, but then it's a lot.
And that's something to note too, is that like you guys going forward, you see Johnny and stuff like that, is that it's a lot to go through, but definitely it's like, I like to say, the things that are worth doing are usually hard, and especially learning. Like, I've been a teacher for a while. Is that usually the whole idea of learning is to make things difficult. Like, the reason why you're learning something new, if it was easy, like, you probably wouldn't be learning very much. And that's where, like, it's going to be difficult in that sense, but it's going to be rewarding that you've accomplished this. And that's where we go in, where if you're feeling like, oh man, this is really tough, like I'm feeling burned out, this is where you reach out to me, you reach out to Dara. Like, these are the people we're trying to support. And also, you guys will probably reach out to each other too. Dara had mentioned a little bit earlier about students asking the same question. I kid you not. Some of you guys had messaged me today. You guys all messaged me with the same exact questions, which I always find really great, because it just shows that you guys are all on the same page and you guys are in that same spot. And sometimes, especially, it can feel very, you can feel very vulnerable of like, what am I sharing? You're like, oh, I don't want everyone to know, I'm having a hard time with this, or I have this question. We're all here on this together. We're all here to help support each other and learn this together. And I think it's always really cool. Like, I will encourage you all. Like, usually people like, well, you're feel free to message me directly. But I always say like, hey, just go ahead and try to share it on Slack, and you'll be surprised how many people are like, yeah, I had that same question too. I've had a cohort that's been around almost like about 9 months now. And someone finally said something. It's like, oh, I'm feeling really behind on this stuff. I know everyone else is doing really well. And then literally half the cohort was like, oh yeah, me too. Like, this is really tough, this module and everything like that. And it's just, I think it's also kind of reassuring to know that you're not in this alone. We might all be separated physically, but we're definitely in here all together. So yeah. Sorry, Dara, I don't know if you had more you wanted to talk about.
No, I'm good. You did a great job rounding things up.
Cool. All right. Well, let me go ahead and move on to this next slide then. So this is kind of leads into a little bit expectations about like what this looks like. And most of this stuff, I'm going to talk about code of conduct and stuff like this. I think most of the things you kind of know. We're all here together to help each other out. So code of conduct, just to kind of help us remind us that we're all here together. We're here to help each other. I'm here to help you. Dara's here to help you. But also you guys are here to support each other. Then we'll talk about graduation requirements of like what that looks like, what things you need to make sure you get done, to make sure you're successful through the program. And then we'll talk about study groups, the blogging parts, the portfolio projects, which I kind of talked about already. And then we'll talk about, module repeat policy as well. Okay, so basic code of conduct. I'm not gonna dwell too much on this, but I think it is an important aspect to do, is that we're all in this together. We're here to help each other out. We're here to succeed together. So it's just sometimes like a nice check. Sometimes too, things can be a little stressful. It's just good to kind of do a quick check, like, hey, am I being considerate, respectful? Am I collaborating with one another? Stuff like that. This is the things that we're trying to aim for. Refraining from demeaning, discriminatory, harassing behavior and speech. And this can sometimes, for the most part, I think people are pretty good. I think sometimes maybe something comes out the wrong way, especially online where we're typing, with no tone, essentially. It's just reading and stuff like that. It's very easy to misread something. So, if someone says like, hey, I didn't really enjoy you saying that, realize that you might have come across, the wrong way, even if you didn't intend something. So just always be aware of it. Create a positive impact on everything around you. I think that's something that, here at Flatiron, we really try to like emphasize is like being positive. One of our pillars is basically radiate positivity, is that I think an honesty is that like being positive about something just helps you proceed forward. It just helps you kind of like say, oh, I made that mistake, but that's all right. Kind of like smile a little bit and move on kind of deal. So something to kind of keep in mind and stuff like that. And can you like have a difficult time? Can you feel frustrated? Of course you can, right? Like that's perfectly human, perfectly natural. But you'll sometimes see me kind of be a little more, little smiles and stuff. And I like smiling. So, I guess you have to deal with that. Participate in an authentic and active way. This is where I will say is that this is going to be a selfish thing for you. If you participate, you are going to get a lot out of this. If you are active, you know, you are going to learn a lot more. You're going to really internalize the things that we're talking about. The less active you are, the less you really want to share and stuff like that necessarily going through. It's just going to be harder to go through that slog. And if you're authentic, you know, it's just going to help everything, you know, for us to help you out. Really, I'm not here to like judge you and all. Like, for example, if you're behind and you're like, oh man, I'm having such a hard time, but we have a one-on-one with Victor, I don't want to tell him kind of deal, tell me. Like, I'm not going to scold you. I'm not going to yell at you or anything like that. I'm here to help you out.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say, this is not high school. This is not like public school. Nobody's going to like, you know, put demerits on, you know, again, next to your name if you don't get things done on time. We're here to help. Like, we're not here to judge you or punish you.
And I think that's an important thing just to remind you guys is that like, hey, like we're here to help out. And the best way we can help you out is if we know how you're doing and all that stuff. This last bullet point right here, consider it your duty to lift up learners who are struggling, to encourage them, to help them along. This sounds very much like, you know, like, hey, let's help each other out. But I will argue is that this is a little selfish too, in a good way, is that honestly, if you see yourself helping others out, I think the best way to learn sometimes really is teaching and helping each other, because you have to put your mindset into a different frame and have to think about things in different ways. So I will say, you know, if you see a question on there, even if it's like tagged towards me, says, hey, Victor, you know, I'm having this problem with this program, you know, here's a code snippet. And you're like, hey, I think I think I figured this part out. Feel free to just go answer that question and stuff like that. Help each other out. And that'll also help you not just like help another person out, like help another of your cohort members, but also it helps you kind of like develop that skill and say, hey, do I actually understand this, you know, and check and see how you're doing. So yeah. Okay, any questions about this code of conduct? I think most of it's pretty like common sense stuff, but I think it's important to just review that, excuse me, just kind of review that information. Excuse me, I've been talking all day. All right, so let's go on to our next slide here. Oops. All right, so graduation requirements. So this is important. So they say, okay, like, cool, like we're going through this program, but what do I need to make sure I need to get done to graduate? And you can see 3 bullet points. It's very, very short. We're very based around project base. But one thing you should know is that you should complete 95% of all lessons. I don't really know why it's 95%, to be quite honest. Like, I think you guys probably will go through all 100% because why wouldn't you? It's kind of like, why would you have this wealth of information and not go through it all? But the requirement is 95%, but I expect you guys are probably gonna go through all 100% easily. And of course, you know, just know, it just helps if you have any questions and stuff like that, you're always welcome to ask and everything. Publish 7 blog posts, which sounds like a whole lot, right? Especially if you've never written a blog post and stuff like this. This is going to be focused on technical stuff. So this is going to be less about like, oh, today was a great day, I went for a walk. Your blog post is going to be saying, hey, other data scientists, hey, people who potentially might be hiring me. This is the stuff I know. Let me explain it to you. Let me show off about what I did for my project. That's what those blog posts are really focused on. And the 7 sounds like a lot. I'm going to tell you a secret. 5 of those blog posts are just built into your projects already. So really when you do your project, we say, all right, part of your project is to also write a blog post about some technical aspect of that project. So that just really means 2 different blog posts that you have to write. And one of them you can probably write right now. One suggested blog post that we have is just write about, you know, why are you interested in data science? What drew you towards data science? Why are you doing this program? And that's a really useful, excuse me, that's a really simple thing that you can do. Okay. The last bullet point is passing all 5 project reviews in order. So note that we will do mod 1, mod 2, mod 3, and then up to capstone, right? You have to do each of those projects, right? And you can't say, well, let me, you know, skip over this project and I'll finish it later. And we'll talk about that, what that looks like. But basically, they're going to be in that order. So that's basically a way for us to, one, assess, you know, just like, hey, you know, how is this module? Are you understanding this module? You know, are you retaining the information? You know, do you need more time essentially to absorb more of this information? Those are the kind of things that we're looking for with this project review. But also, this project reviews too are saying, hey, this project looks good and it should be something you should include in your portfolio. So that's how you can also think of it. But you can see very small list of requirements that you have to do. And really the big journey is not getting these things done. It's about getting to this point where you can get them done. So that's kind of like my goal for you guys. Okay. Any questions about these requirements? Good. All right, cool. All right, so this is kind of going to be like a more or less typical week of what this looks like, what this whole process looks like. Note that today is Tuesday, it's not Monday. So normally we would start our week on Monday, right? Of course, there's some holidays and stuff like that. But basically the idea here is that there'll be new lessons every week. We actually release the whole module at once. So you actually have all the lessons for the next 2 months available to you. Don't feel like that the challenge that you have to go through all of it right now in this week. But the idea is that every week we will have like 2 sections that we're going to focus on next. And what's kind of cool too is that we actually have the project in there. So you can actually look at it ahead of time, like, hey, in 2 months in 2 months from now, what does the project look like? And you can check that out and see like what you're expected to do and kind of see what those lessons are supposed to, how those lessons will lead you to that project. So it's a really nice thing to do. We also, so one thing it says must complete by the end of week unless marked as bonus. So every week we will have 2 sections. So today, this week is going to be section 0, which you'll see is relatively small, basically just getting things started. And then section 1. So those are the 2 sections that you guys should have completed by the end of the week. Now I will say one thing, I don't like this phrasing, to be perfectly honest, of must complete, because it makes it sound like if you don't complete it, really bad things are going to happen. And also, and the other one's like, oh, well, I can wait until the end of week to do all this stuff. I will say is that the students that really, really get the most out of this program and really come out really as strong data scientists are the ones who try their hardest to try to complete the section, if they can, before we do our study group. And basically, I usually structure the study group as if you haven't completed those sections. I also realize that you guys are part-time. Most of you probably have some job or something else on the side that you're doing right now, which is why you're probably in part-time. So I realize that it's not always feasible. Maybe, for example, you work Monday through Friday and you only have Saturday and Sunday available to you, right? Totally understand. But if you can, as much as possible, review the section before our study group that's dedicated towards that section, awesome. If not, no worries. We'll go over it in study group and everything like that. So this is going to be a little bit loose right now. We're going to kind of solidify it into next week. But the main idea here is that on Monday, Monday, you might start Sunday, whatever feels like your start of the week. We'll have our new sections that we're supposed to do. These are already available to you. You don't have to worry about saying, oh, is Victor released this section yet? Or, am I waiting to know what section it is? It's just counting to every time. And I'll let you know if it's something different. So that'll all be on learn.co. And then as of right now, I think what we might be doing, it depends, is we might end up doing a study group on Tuesday or Wednesday. But if it's on Tuesday, we'll have our study group at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we will go over that section of whatever that section is. So let's say next week will be section 3, or sorry, section 2 and section 3. So on Tuesday, if it's Tuesday, we will have, our section about talking about that material. I'll kind of review it a little bit. Note that study groups are only 1 hour long. So I'm not going to go through the whole section, and teach you every little part of that. But I'm going to try to emphasize the parts that I think that are important, that I think that you should go through. And I try to prep something for you guys to basically go into it. So either you can go into it already doing the section and we can kind of review extra stuff and I put emphasis of oh, these are things that I think are really important. Or you can kind of go into it, it's I kind of quickly browse through it, but haven't gone through the section completely. I will kind of say, well, these are the things that you should focus on. These are the parts that, looking for. This is a quick review. So then when we go into the section and start doing the lessons, you'll be familiar with it. Okay, so that'll be Tuesday. And then the idea is that we'll do it maybe 2 days later, which will be Thursday, right? And then we go to the next section. Wednesday, you basically might have one-on-ones. Basically, it's your time to just work on the lessons and everything like that. And then on Friday, we usually you just get in more sections and like that. And I put reflection time. So usually we have Friday feels, which is already on the calendar for this week. And basically it's a good time for us all to come together. It's not necessarily a technical time, but it can be if you guys really would like to. And the main idea of Friday feels is really to reflect and kind of look past this week. Also just kind of get to know each other too, outside of just being in the study groups and coding up, data science stuff. Because as you guys will kind of graduate from this program, you guys will be peers. You guys will be basically know each other. As you guys graduate, you guys will be data scientists that already know other data scientists, which will be all of you. Okay. And then I put Saturday, Sunday, basically. Most of the time, especially for part-time, usually people tend to do it on most of the work on weekends and stuff. And one thing I'll emphasize, you can see in this little tiny corner, 25 hours a week. This is what we suggest you doing. And this is where I will tell you right now is that there's usually a lot of people who say, hey, 25 hours, well, that's suggested. I don't really need to do 25 hours. If I'm really good, I can probably do this like in 10 hours, maybe 15 hours, at most. I will tell you right now, if you're not planning on 25 hours, plan on it now. This is going to be probably the biggest factor of like whether or not, you'll be able to, keep up and go through. Is that having that time, not just to read the material, but actually code it and actually try it. And then also code it and get errors and not get the answer right away. And that's going to take time to go through. And that process of like bumping into walls and then getting over those walls, that's going to be where the learning happens. And that just takes time. So I would strongly recommend is that if you're not thinking about 25 hours right now, plan on it. And I would say that's about, sometimes some weeks you might only do 20 hours. Maybe you get it really understand it, but more likely you'll probably have 25 hours, maybe even 30 hours, depending on how things go. Okay. And I see Darren nodding because I'm pretty sure a lot of students have said to her in her ed coaching meetings, it's like, hey, I'm not putting enough in time. Yeah, so cool. Anything you wanted to add, Dara? I know this is not usually like the part that, yeah.
I was just going to say, if you're listening to Victor and you're thinking, oh my gosh, 25 hours, how am I going to fit that in? Let's talk about that. We can talk about it in our kickoff session.
Yeah, that's perfect. Definitely. If you feel like that was intimidating, like me saying, oh, 25 hours, like, oh no, like how is this going to split up? Talk to Dara. Even if they, oh, I can do 25 hours, I can do 5 hours here, 5 hours here, but you're still kind of loose and stuff like that, still talk to Dara. She will help you out immensely. Okay, cool. All right. So kind of go along. I won't spend too much time. We're at 45. Okay, pretty good. So blogging. So one thing I'll mention about this blogging, there is a blogging setup within learn.co itself. You'll see that little tab called blog on the top. And you can actually see what other blogs, including the software engineering program, not just the data science program, as well as the other programs that are in Flatiron. I will say though, one personal thing, because we are in data science, medium.com, give me a thumbs up if you guys know medium.com or have seen like articles on there. Okay, I see some thumbs up, some hands, cool. I will say is that, some people don't like it, some people do like it. However, let's see a little message here. Oops, there we go, pop up. There we go. Just a quick question whenever you get a chance. Okay, just let me know, Alaska, when you're got a little time. I'll open up the questions in a second. But for blogs and stuff like that, I would suggest writing in medium.com. You don't have to write on learn.co. It is a nice platform that already exists. I will say is that I've had students in the past use learn.co and medium.com, and they might prefer medium.com. One thing too is that it's basically to get exposure to say, hey, like I am a data scientist, here's what I have, and this can be very intimidating to some people. I'll be like, oh no, I don't want to make any mistakes and stuff like that. But the main thing is basically trying to show like, hey, I am a learning student. I am learning, I am doing all these amazing things. Here, you should share this stuff. And what's really nice, I especially like for medium.com, is that it has some extra online exposure and stuff like that. So we'll talk more about this too as we get closer into the blogging part. And if you have specific questions about blogging, definitely talk to me. I am not a professional blogger. I am not the best writer in the world, but it's something that I can help you with. I don't judge too hard on specifically about people's writing skills and stuff like that because everyone's different at what they're good at. Cool. But any questions? I know, Alaska, you had a question. Maybe it's related to blogging, maybe it's not.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, so it was just related to like the schedule and the timeline. So if somebody can't make a study group on a certain day or a certain week, what process is there for like, if you have like a question that you want answered, is there a way to like submit it to you ahead of time and then have it addressed and then like watch the recording?
Yeah, no, that's great question. Yeah, so one thing I'll ask is that just to kind of keep you accountable, just make it not too easy to just be like, I'm not going to go to study group today. I'm going to ask that if you can't make it, let me know, right? Just message me, say, hey, I can't make it today. I have something going on. Perfectly fine, right? It happens. I usually make effort to make the recording of the study groups. So that way, if you do miss it, or if you want to review it, which something students do, sometimes it comes back like a month later, like, ooh, we talked about the study group, I want to review it. I have that recording. I'll share those student resources, especially for tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about like this whole process, getting you kind of feel for where to find these resources. So this also includes recordings from other instructors too, or possibly even myself in the past kind of deal. You also, for study groups, this won't happen too frequently, but sometimes there are other study groups that are from other instructors from other cohorts, but they might be on the same topic or a related topic that you want to check out. That will also be available. And we'll talk about this in detail tomorrow when we kind of go through. I'm going to go tomorrow all through learn.co and kind of show you all of the nooks and crannies and stuff you can do. Okay. Does that answer your question, Alaska?
Yeah, it was just like a selfish reason. Like I just asked because it's at like 5 p.m. Eastern, and I know I don't get home from work until like 6 p.m. like every day. So I just thought I'd ask. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And that's something that's why the schedule right now is kind of up in the air right now. I'm going to send out, we'll talk about a survey that we'll send out and get a feel for, you know, what everyone's schedule is, and we can try to make something work.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cool. No problem. Cool. Any other quick questions before I move on? No? Pretty good. Okay. I'm trying to make this under an hour too. You know, I can talk a little bit. So, all right. So quick thing about portfolio projects. So this is kind of like, we have our study groups, we're doing this for 6 weeks, you know, learn all this material, and then we have our project. So your project really is about a couple things. One is just for us to check, hey, have you kind of internalized this material? You know, this is going to be done over a 2-week period and stuff like that, where you work just on the project. No new material, just working on projects. Our study groups basically will be office hours where you can ask questions about specifically about the project. The main thing is that when you do this, you'd want to make sure, and this we'll go over this as we get closer to the portfolio project, but making sure you hit all the requirements. And what's nice about these projects is that they're portfolio projects because we're putting them into your portfolio, essentially projects you can show off essentially of your skills and talk to someone about. If someone says, hey, tell me about your project, you know, on, you know, Airbnb or whatever you were doing. He's like, oh, like you can talk about it, you can show it, you can do all these things. That's kind of the goal of these portfolio projects. One thing to note is that you, again, have 2 weeks, and then we have this due date where basically you work on it for 2 weeks, and then we start project assessments. So you have that 2 weeks to basically work on your project, and then after that point, we will have a project assessment where either myself or another instructor will basically, you know, interact with you. You'll walk them through 2 parts, a technical part and a non-technical. So we'll go into more details what that looks like. Basically just to show, like, you know, can you communicate this well? Have you done, you know, a decent job of actually exploring and going through all the data science process? And you have 2 weeks to do that assessment. If you don't quite do that part, we'll kind of talk about that next. We'll say like what the next steps are. One thing to kind of note, this kind of says project reviews, I usually call them like non-technicals, is that one part is that you're going to be also doing your presenting skills. So one part of the data scientist is that it's not just about being able to code this stuff, but also being able to communicate this to other people who might not be data scientists, who might not be technical. This might be a VP of a company or something like that, or, you know, a manager who doesn't really know data science, doesn't know all the statistics, you know, and all this stuff. Is that your job is to make sure you explain this stuff and can explain it well and make it actionable for them, and like, what is the next step? This is why sometimes you hear data scientists also called decision scientists, because they're making decisions and trying to help convey what decisions they should do. We'll also have, for the technical piece, you'll talk about your code, basically as if you're talking to a data manager. Basically someone's like another data scientist and saying what you did, what were the reasons, you know, can you walk through? Is it easy for someone to read through? And then also receiving feedback. So what's nice about our one-on-one project assessments is that you'll get feedback directly from that instructor, whether it's me or someone else. And usually for me, for example, I'll make sure to give you back written feedback of what we talked about, as well as verbal feedback right after the project assessment. That way, you know, if you need to improve something, or if there's in the future things that you could do better, because we can always improve better, right? I can improve all the time. So those are things that we can get, and then you can internalize and figure out, you know, what things you can do in the future. Okay. So we'll definitely talk a lot more about this process as we get closer to it. But the main thing to note is that basically this is your way to show off what you've learned, and to make it as part of your thing that you'll show off to, you know, recruiters or interviewers, or, you know, be able to talk about someone else. Okay. Sound good? Okay. So the next part is really saying, like, what happens if if you don't pass the project, So the first thing, if you don't pass the project, the first time, I'll usually, or whoever the instructor is, will give back feedback and say, okay, these are things that are missing. Here's kind of like where you need to, maybe modify your project or do some a little bit more work or, clear this up. And, say, okay, you gave them this feedback, let's reschedule to do another project assessment. If you go after that second time, it's like, okay, like you still haven't gotten that part, maybe it means that you really need to internalize more of this material. And so we have this module repeat policy where, like, if you, for example, don't pass the project after that second time, or it's taking you longer than that 2 weeks to do that assessment, basically we say that, okay, like, you know what, maybe you need more time to really go over this module more. So the idea here is that you would transfer over to another cohort, transfer to self-paced, basically something that works well for your schedule and your, learning and stuff like this. Because we want to make sure that you internalize it. We don't just want to pass you through if you're like, oh, like you kind of got it, but not quite. We want to make sure you really got it and you can move on to the next part. So there's some more information about here. We can talk more in detail too if you're curious about exactly where this goes. But there's a lot of text on here, so I want to make sure I don't skip anything. So if you do need to repeat a module again, you're given the opportunity to repeat this project or the module for a new cohort. So note that basically you might have to go to a different cohort, which will probably mean a new instructor, group of students, perfectly fine and everything like that. If you're not able to successfully complete the project, and remember, completing that project is either actually having a project assessment or, if you, after the second time, you haven't passed that project, think, okay, you need more time to really absorb this material and do that project. You also have the option to transfer to self-paced, which might be more, reasonable for what you're doing. There's usually this option or go into another part-time cohort. This is something, to be quite honest, I don't have a huge amount of handle by myself because this is usually done with something called student services and stuff like this. But it's something just to kind of know is that basically your goal then is to finish that project and get with that practice in 2 weeks. I know sometimes people feel a little like kind of uncertain about this, like not uncertain, but like a little stressed out. It's like, oh no, like I want to make sure I get all this stuff done. It's something that honestly, it's going to help you out. And usually I've had students, honestly, I even had students transfer from one cohort to my other cohort. And usually that's something like, oh, they felt so much better. It was exactly the right choice for them and everything like that. And it was perfectly good. So really this is to help you guys out as much as possible. Make sure you guys get that information. Yeah. Any questions? I kind of went through this relatively quickly, but again, I'll repeat this information too as we get closer to projects. Okay, cool. All right. So moving on then, quick community stuff. So main thing is Slack. Slack is going to be our go-to place. And then talk about WeWork, about your hot desk and all that stuff. So Slack, basically, you guys should all be on Slack now. I believe I have everyone on there. We have our own Cohort channel. We also have other channels for specific about the module and stuff like that. And I'll show you guys that tomorrow. We'll walk through it and everything like that, like where to ask these questions. Basically know that this allows you to participate in groups. You kids can talk to each other. You can talk to the instructor. Dara is on our channel. You can ask her questions. There's other, if you go into another channel, there might be other students that you can interact with as well as other instructors and stuff like that. In general though, our cohort will basically be specific to our cohort and what's it called? We'll have all our like stuff that's specific to us. So that only you guys have access to that versus, other students and stuff like this. It just means that it keeps everything nice and tidy. Okay, cool. And I think everyone has been joining everything like that. Let's see here. Yeah, does anyone not have access to the cohort channel? Like for a fact that you don't have access. Okay, cool. I think I added everyone. So, but if not, if you realize, unless you're watching this recording and you're like, oh shoot, like I don't have access. Definitely, I don't know how you get access to this video if you did. But anyway, if you don't have access for any reason, definitely let me know. Email me and all that stuff. But most of our interaction will be on Slack, not through email. Okay, cool. All right, oops. I don't know what I did right there. Oh, I clicked on something. I clicked on a GIF. Okay. Next slide. All right, so this is our data science team right now, our data science instructor team. We have Raphael, John should know him, myself, Abanit. Ben is one of our technical coaches. So he's basically, we call him like our night shift. He's the one who basically comes in to checks everything, see how things going. And then we have James, Jeff, Eli. Eli might be another person that might be doing one-on-ones instead of me, just so you kind of know. And then we also have Matt, who also is an instructor / technical coach. And all of these people have plenty of technical knowledge. They're all amazing. I've been working with them for quite some time now, and they just will help you no matter what. I will also introduce them on Slack too, probably tomorrow when we talk about, all the little details and stuff like this. And then you can always ask them as well. Sometimes you might see them pop in, just, say hey and ask questions, or not ask questions, but answer your questions. Okay, cool. So cool. So last couple of things, WeWork Hot Desk membership. Basically, you have access to 12 months to basically WeWork. So for example, being remote, being at home, sometimes being home just feels kind of, I just need to get out and just go somewhere to go do that work. You have a place, you have WeWork to be able to do this. So note that basically this is a 12-month part. So that means this whole program is 10 months. You get an extra little 2 months, right, of actually, using that stuff, especially as you're searching for jobs and everything. So really great thing. And I can give you guys more detail on this as well. Okay, cool. And just know that there's a lot of places. So I know we're kind of all spread throughout. This is showing the US, but I know there's stuff in the UK as well. I know there's at least one person. I'm going to remember someday, but there should be a lot of WeWorks around you. And if not, you can maybe find a place that you like. Cool. Oh, good. Thank you, Dara, for the link in the Zoom chat. So good. Awesome. All right. So some real quick checklist of what to do. Basically, we'll have Meet Your Classmates coming up next. I actually have to head out in a second, but Dara will take on that part. If you haven't already, just say hello. Just say on Slack, say, hey, everyone. I already seen a few people up in there, but just kind of like say hello on Slack. That way we kind of know who you are and just say, hey, and do a little the emoji reaction, stuff like that. Make sure you schedule your kickoff with Dara. So make sure you actually have something planned out. I think that'll be a really great first meeting. Definitely do it. Again, Dara is amazing. And make sure you review the calendar for onlearn.co on the homepage. And just take note of those due dates and stuff. I know, especially as you guys kind of plan out like what this looks like, if you have vacations planned and stuff like that. It's good to kind of just know what this looks like ahead of time. And then I know a lot of you guys, if not everyone, has already started on the projects and lessons. So keep on working on that stuff. Okay, cool. So that's kind of a mini little checklist. All right. So this is where we would go. I would pass it on to Dara to go through. And I do have to head out. I'm so sorry. I thought I could finish this within less than an hour, but I guess not.
Victor, before you say goodbye, will you please make me post?
Yes, I will. All right. So yeah,
any questions for Victor before he disappears?
Yes.
For the day, not forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I will be back tomorrow for sure. Just know I am Pacific time. I usually try to log in on my time about 7:30 a.m. my Pacific time. So just know that even if you're on a time zone, you want to message me anyway. I'll get to it. I just might not be awake yet, or I haven't responded. But don't worry about like bothering me. Like that's what I'm here for. Okay.